So here we go. This is a shop week. All right. We've got basically 2 weeks left. Okay. Looking at the schedule, we have, let's see. So here we are. Okay. In June. And so right now you're in the Maroon Week. And we're going to go through this week as shop. And you have the 10th and 11th shop, technically the 8th, the 9th, and the 12th, 15th as theory. But we're going to do the same project all the way throughout. All right, we're doing branding in 3 parts, and we're just going to kind of cover it in those 3 weeks. Okay, so your part 2 project for branding, okay, under your shop, is going to be due this Friday. Excuse me. And basically, what you're overall going to be doing is you're going to be rebranding NASA. Okay, um, we're obviously not going to get to this on the computer. If you want to try it, you certainly can. But basically, part 2 is going to be the biggest chunk because that's going to be where you're doing your visual research and your sketches, your thumbnails, your word bank, things like that. Once we get this done, part 3 will simply be doing your comp. Okay, really kind of fully developing that. We're going to go over all of that here in the presentation as well. We'll talk about it at the meeting, but those of you that don't get to the meeting, since there's only about 4 of you that actually show up to the meetings, you're going to want to watch this video to kind of help you go through. Okay. Um, so we're going to kind of go through this as though we were in school. This is our intro to branding. If you look at sophomores, it's actually week 14 through 16. 17 and 18 is motion graphics. We are obviously not even going to attempt to try to get through motion graphics. Okay, so we're going to kind of work on intro to branding because this is what you're going to start with Mr. Nagel. You're going to start with some branding and some Illustrator and kind of get yourselves back into things. At least that's the plan. All right, so we're going to get into logo design, a little bit of branding. So what is branding? Branding is the art of defining a company's personality through their logo and marketing materials, characteristics, form, weight, contrast, color, things like that. So when you're branding a company, you're deciding on their fonts, you're deciding on their colors, you're deciding on what they're going to look like, how they're going to function. All of that is kind of encompassed in branding. We're starting with just the logo. Everything that comes from a brand really does start from their logo, okay? So this was your original project, and you can see all the objectives and things like that. And so we've kind of started with the funny reading assignment. You guys did that already, okay? We're going to skip the branding questionnaire for now. We're going to work on a word bank. You're going to research NASA, and you're going to take a look at some visual research as well. We're not going to worry about our style from the illustration styles. That can help you. We'll go over that as well in a second, okay? But this is all here. If you look at the project, I have given you a ton of links and images, some of which we'll go over today. Others you have to look through. The NASA ones are NASA's logos, so you can get an idea of what they currently have. All right, the design process we're going to go over. This is a cool video, the art of logo design. Check it out. Kind of gives you a different perspective of logo design. We're going to go over the 5 principles of logos. We're going to go over the types of logos. And then the logo trends are illustration styles that you guys have seen before, just to help you get an idea of maybe where you want to go with it. Okay, if we were in school, we were going to pick one of those trends and kind of roll with it. If you want to do that, you can, but you don't have to for this. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about our progression in terms of our sketches and our comps. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is and to discuss is the design process. Okay, and we have talked about this a little bit. We have worked in it a little bit, but we really haven't gone over it particularly fully. So the design process, okay? The steps are to define the problem, learn and research, generate your ideas, design development, and implementation. And this is a Venn diagram. If you've ever seen one of these, it's kind of cool. It kind of shows where everything sort of comes into the center right here, where it all sort of combines. The first step is to define the problem. In order to solve a problem, designers need to understand it. Sometimes what is presented and described as the problem actually is not. Designers must learn to figure out or evaluate for themselves and their clients a lot of the time what the root problem is and then proceed to solve it. So somebody might come to you and say, I need a business card, I need this, and you'll look at their stuff and realize, no, you don't need a business card. You don't even have a logo yet. You haven't even chosen colors yet. You're showing me 3 different business cards. They all have 3 different color schemes and 6 different fonts. So sometimes what the client thinks the problem is isn't necessarily what the problem actually is. Learn and research. Learning is understanding, a deliberate systematic search for knowledge and advancement. Most people do this subconsciously in almost everything they do. When they shop for the best new cell phone, video game, or even food, they learn about the products. Learning informs our decisions. It is no different in the graphic design process. Learning takes on many forms, from simply Googling something, asking a friend's opinion, watching people's behavior on a street. If something is learned, it can be used to better inform design decisions. Often, designers use the term as a synonym for learning, research as a synonym for learning. So, when we're doing our visual research, we're learning. We're looking at what other people are doing. Okay. When you're branding, you're looking at a company, looking at the people that are coming in the store, looking at the people that are interacting, things like that to do your research. Generating ideas. Coming up with uniquely original ideas may be the most difficult part of the design process. I don't think any of us disagrees there. Ideas are dependent on and require the first two steps in the design process. Generating ideas is an active exercise. It takes motivation and discipline to find original thought. As a rule of thumb, don't settle on the first idea. That's why I have you guys do 6 thumbnails. Some ways you can generate ideas. Ask yourself questions, make lists, make mind maps, word associations, create thumbnail sketches, brainstorm. You will do a mind map with Mr. Nagel. It's kind of cool. Design development. In graphic design, this means to develop and refine one's work. In the previous step, generate ideas. The goal was to ideate, come up with lots of ideas. These ideas should be based on learning and research. One way to generate and visualize ideas is to create thumbnail sketches. These sketches are not the end of the design process, but they are a step closer to solving the design problem. Design development requires constant refinement. Refinement comes through exploration and talking about the work with others. This critique can be formal or informal and can involve anyone. We do that a lot. All right. So looking at sort of the design steps. Oh, there he is. I was wondering where he was going. All right. And the last one, implementation. The last step in the design process is implementation. Applying that completed design. One could say this is more design development, but instead of defined as implementation, putting a design into effect. This means applying more of the processes students have just learned. It's important to note that designers regularly become part of something larger and that they often work as members of a team. Implementing design requires all the steps in the design process. Again, unfortunately, much has already been done or should have been done through the initial design process. Another reason is to thoroughly complete the process. So when you're implementing, you're actually putting your design into the process, okay, into the steps. So this is a little background, all right, into the design process and to sort of how you go about, going through a full-scale branding design like this, all right. And again, you're getting just the introduction. We kind of did this so that you'd have a little intro into some of this terminology and some of this ideology, so that when you go with Mr. Nagel, he's able to slide into this a little bit, and it's not completely raw to you. Okay, we understand in normal situations, you come back from summer, and everyone's kind of a little scattered, and it takes a while to get back in. This is going to be even harder, but at least we can kind of feed you into the process a little bit. Okay, so we've defined branding, we've looked at the design process. So and I've included this in your piece. We're going to use this the simplest thing. Okay, in what you've got the 5 principles of effective logo design. Okay. So they're simple, memorable, timeless, versatile, and appropriate. So simple. That one's pretty easy, okay? Think about the logos that you remember. Think about the logos that are on the top of your mind. McDonald's, Nike, Burger King, Apple, Disney, okay? They're not complex. They're not these fine little drawings with all of this detail and all of these effects, okay? And that makes them easier to remember, which is the second one, memorable. All right, you want to have a logo that people look at and go, "Oh yeah, I know that one." Okay, Nike's the easiest to think of. Couldn't get much more simple than a little swoosh. Okay, but everyone knows who it is. It's extremely simple, which means it can also be recreated on shirts, on hats, sneakers, anywhere for really easy. Okay, if you have a complex logo with drop shadows and all this detail, and you shrink it down to be put on a business card, it's going to get really difficult to look at. Okay, or if you try to recreate it in embroidery. All right, that gets even harder. All of a sudden, now you have to take colors away, and it doesn't necessarily look right. All right, timeless. This one's hard because you can think of some of the things that are timeless, but even some of the logos that have been around for a long, long time. Gerber just changed their logo. 3M has changed before. So there's a lot of companies. Ford has stayed relatively the same, but even they have adjusted what their logo looks like on cars and vehicles. Okay. But as timeless as possible. So you think of logos. John Deere's another one that's gone for a long, long time. Okay. Versatile, again, can be used anywhere. You don't want to have a logo on your shirt that looks completely different from a logo on your business card or completely different from a logo that looks on your car. So it needs to be versatile. It needs to be usable in any kind of manner that you need it in. That's why it needs to be simple, okay, and appropriate. And I always use the example, if you're creating a logo for a lawyer, you wouldn't have a picture of a clown as your icon, okay? I mean, maybe you would, but you probably wouldn't want to hire him. So it needs to be appropriate to whatever the field or the effect that you're going for, okay? So those are the 5 principles of effective logo design. I have included that in here as well. I have to look through it. Yep, there we go. 5 is all right. The next step, okay, we've gone over the 5 principles. We've gone over branding, all right, or at least the naming of branding and the design process, okay. The next step is the types of logos that there are, okay, and really logos can be broken down into 3 types, okay, iconic or symbolic, logo type or word mark, and combination marks, and you've seen these everywhere, okay, and you've seen them used everywhere, and you've seen them before. So iconic or symbolic, simply just an icon, okay, and so some of these, Apple does use the word Apple underneath it occasionally, and NBC has some, has NBC underneath it, but not often. So these are logos that, are recognizable simply as a symbol, okay? And I would throw Nike in there as well, and I would throw McDonald's in there with the arches, okay? So that's what those are, simply iconic, just symbols, okay? A logo type or word mark. So these are more typography. So you think of Disney, and of course that came from Walt Disney's signature. The NASA logo, that's the older NASA logo that came from, again, more typography, and FedEx. So you've seen these around. So this is just, it's typography, and a lot of times there's some play with them. So like that NASA font's not an actual font. I mean, it might be a font now, but it wasn't when they started. FedEx uses a certain font, but there's an adjustment to it. There's a tweak to it, okay? So a logo type or word mark involves no art whatsoever, okay? And for some companies, that's super effective, okay? And the last one is the one that you're going to work on, okay? Which is a combination mark. So a combination mark includes graphics and text that come together, okay? The thing to think about, though, is that the text should be sort of separate. In other words, it shouldn't be inside of the icon, because you want to be able to pull the text away and still technically have an iconic symbol there, okay? So Reebok, you take away the Reebok words, you have the icon. Spotify, you take away the Spotify, you just have the icon. You have something that people recognize. Chanel, same way, super, super recognizable, okay? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at both combination type of mark. So this will be harder because we're typing it. We're handwriting it. So you want to just get an idea of the style of the type that you want to use. Okay, I'm not expecting you to look up fonts and think of a font that you want to use. You don't have to go that far. If you want to, fantastic. But when we get to more so the comp in part 3, you'll want to go through and sort of really draw that out. Okay. But you're just, for now, just going to kind of get an idea. Think about, is it going to have serifs? Is it going to be scripty? Is it not going to be scripty? That type of thing. All right. I wouldn't think with NASA it would be scripty, but you kind of get the idea. Okay. So that's sort of the basis there. Now, where we are with NASA and how we're going to rebrand them. All right. NASA has super specific things that they want in their logo. Okay. I'm going to pretend that I'm NASA and I'm hiring you for the logo redesign. In years past, we've shared these on Twitter with NASA, and they usually like them. They don't repost them or anything, and they usually don't comment, but they usually like them on Twitter or something like that, which has kind of been cool. So looking at your assignment, we roll back up here, logo specs. You must represent aeronautics, space, travel, and planets. And when you sketch these out, okay, and then on your final comp as well, I want them labeled, little arrows that just label what it is. That way I'm not guessing what it is, and I know that you represented these 4 pieces, okay? So if you look at, let me see if I have that thing on my desktop. Okay. If you look at this particular piece, all right, here's how it breaks down, okay? And NASA, I forget the year of the book, but their brand booklet is one that is used by teachers and professors and designers, because it's kind of like the end-all be-all of what a sort of style guide should look like. And a style guide is a magazine or a book that's put together that tells anybody that's going to use any of your stuff how to use it. And theirs is pretty cool. We have a digital copy of it. I actually have some printed copies of it too. It goes over how it's put on the rockets, how it's put on the cars, how it's put on the uniforms, the astronauts, all of the stuff, which is really kind of cool. So you'll notice the pieces here. The vector, they call this line the vector. All right, that represents aeronautics. The stars represent space, pretty basic. The orbit is represented, okay, by this little guy here. Okay, that represents space travel. And the sphere represents the planet. So that you can see where they have those 4 pieces. Aeronautics is the study of flight, in case you're wondering. All right. So you need to figure out a creative way to represent those. Eventually, I'll show you. If I have them, I have to double check. They may be in my computer packed up at school. I'll show you some examples of what other students have come up with. There's been some really cool pieces developed here. This is a challenge. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be hard when we're in school. It's going to be harder when we're out of school, but you're going to have some time to work on it. Right? But It's meant to be a challenge. If I said to you, let's just do a landscape or a logo, it's not much of a challenge. This takes some thought. On the right-hand side, you'll just see the basic elements. And this just gives you a little idea of how they use it and the colors. There's NASA red, NASA blue, NASA gray, NASA silver, NASA black. If you decide later on in your comp to add color, you do not have to add color to your comp. All right. But if you decide to, you need to use these colors as well. And again, you have these 2 pages in your setup. Okay. This just gives you kind of a breakdown of exactly what happens. So it gives you the Pantone colors, 185, which is a very standard red, and 286, which is a very standard blue. They're very simple, but it's red, white, and blue. Okay. So this will give you an idea. So you're going to rebrand NASA. You do not have to use the same type of font that they have. Right? You can be a little more creative with this and kind of figure out what you want. And again, you can search fonts if you want, or you can just draw something up that kind of works. All right. But that's your challenge. Your challenge is to come up with 6 thumbnails to redesign the NASA logo. Now, when we're doing thumbnails for logo designs, all right, and again, here's what you're handing in on Friday is 6 thumbnails, and one of them includes your word bank somewhere on there, okay, in the images that you give me. Your word bank has to have a minimum of 6 words that you would use to describe NASA. So if I was going to describe NASA, I would say modern, I would say clean, I would say fast, words like that, adjectives that you think of when you think of NASA, okay? Try not to use these 4 words here because that's not going to help you. All right? And again, you're creating a combination mark. All right? So the challenge here in your sketches, all right, is to create quick thumbnail sketches. Now, you got 6 thumbnail sketches. So the question I always get asked is, well, does it have to be 6 different logos? No, not necessarily. You can have a very similar logo that you like overall, and you can modify it 5 other different ways and kind of change it a little bit and manipulate it. You could have 3 completely different designs and then a couple more other designs that are come off of that. So for this particular piece, does it have to be 6 completely separate different ideas? No, but each idea has to be pretty different in terms of you can't just draw a circle with something inside of it and then for the second one, make the circle a square. All right, it needs to be kind of a significant change. All right. So you're going to do some visual research, and just to give you an idea of what you could look for in logo designs is, so I'll put a link onto this, but Logo of the Day is a great website that has, just as you imagine, logos. All right. I'll give you access as well to one of the logo sites that I use a lot of the time, and I'll be able to give that one off to you too. And I don't have it saved here, but I'll have to get it up. But you're able to search logos. So you can look through here and kind of get an idea of some really interesting stuff and just sort of, again, brainstorm. You could also look at straight up Google, and you could look at space logos. All right. And this will give you an idea of some kind of cool logos based on different space. Like, these are really neat. These are really cool. They start to get a little complex. If you could see this logo here, if it was shrunk down to about that size for a business card, that you'd have some issues in recognizing some of the pieces, as well as trying to embroider that onto something would be very difficult. But you can get some really cool ideas, okay, of logos. I mean, right off the bat, there's some really cool stuff. Now, again, just like anything we also do with visual research, do not just copy. Look at this and go, oh, I like that. I'm going to take it. Change the ideas. You might like the rocket idea from this, and you might like the spaceship from this, and the fact that this goes around. So you might pull that and then do something more creative. But just searching space logos, you can see the number of things I got. I wonder what retro looks like. I bet that's really cool. So here's some really cool retro stuff. So again, you can kind of get an idea of how you want to do it and how you want to be. You may want to stay away from being so literal with the spaceship. I think that's going to be difficult. You want to be more creative, okay, that way. That's really cool. Not really appropriate for what we're doing, but very, very cool. So you can see just doing the search for space logos is pretty crazy, okay? So that's your visual research. And then your thumbnails, all right? The general progress of how a thumbnail works, you've seen this before, I hope. It's on our curriculum site. So this is a thumbnail drawing in a logo sense. Small. Okay, a lot of you guys end up with sketches, and I end up seeing 1 per page, and that's fine, except A, you're killing your paper, and B, you don't need to do that. A thumbnail sketch is super small, okay? 1 inch wide, 1 inch tall. Get an idea, overall layout. The key elements in a thumbnail sketch are form, placement, general layout, and very, very rough type, all right? Part 3 of this will be your composite. Okay, creating a composite. Right, you're actually going to do 3 composites. You're going to pick 3 of your sketches and turn them into comps. All right, and when we do comps, you can see there's more detail. Now it's 4 to 5 inches. So now you got 1 per page, maybe 2 per page. All right, line weight, text layout and scale, spacing, proximity, shading if there's any of that, giving you a full idea. This is where we're going to go. And then you've got your final logo. If you want to go to final logo, you certainly can. You do not have to. That is not a requirement of this particular project. Okay, but those of you that are looking for something to do in Illustrator, this might not be a bad one. All right, since we're going to kind of develop it from the start. This is in there, okay? So I don't want to see like 3-inch thumbnails. I want to see quick, easy thumbnails. The biggest part of this process, okay, and this is why this is the most important part, is all of the thought that goes into it, right? Your visual research, you're thinking of your ideas, your word bank, all of that to help you develop what's going to happen with NASA, okay? And keep in mind the things that you're trying to represent. Aeronautics, space, travel, and planets, all right? Usually the hardest one for people to figure out how to represent is aeronautics. All right? But you've got all of these links up here. Okay, you've got the design process you can kind of go through. That's going through the design process. That's the broken down version of it. That's what we do normally when we design. Okay, we go through that process of solving the problem and all of that. You've got your NASA pieces here. Your logo trends. Let's see if this will let me open up. Okay. Your logo trends are, you've seen these before. These are all the different kind of styles that we've been looking at for illustrations. And you can look at these, and this could kind of help you. You might say, all right, I want to do, and again, because what we were going to do is you were going to pick one of these and design your NASA logo based off of that to kind of help you make it a little bit easier. So maybe you decide, okay, I want to use Transmenagerie. I like this sort of feel of this. That's how I'm going to do my NASA logo. And that might help you drive kind of your sketches if you're really, really stuck. Okay, you can really work on that. If you remember, we did this at the beginning of the year. Okay, it was way back. All right, in our first 2 weeks. All right, Digital Illustration 3. We went through and picked out our pieces. Okay, remember this? See that? So you've done these. All right, and so maybe you'd want to pick one of these since you already did it. It's really up to you. All right, I want you to kind of be able to have a little leeway with this. That's why I said I wasn't going to hold you to this. Just we're not in school and it's hard to hold you to these particular. But all of them are there, not just the ones that we have done before. So you could look through these if you're really struggling with like a style that you think you could want to work with. But looking at my space logo search, I think that's going to be really easy. This is very easy to find some really, really cool inspiration for. Okay, I will double check my link to the other logo website that I look at, and I'll get that to you as well. Okay. So that's part 2. Okay. We're going to meet Monday, which is tomorrow. Today's Sunday. And we're going to go over some of this. Not all of this because I've got this video for you guys, but I'm going to touch base, see if anybody's got any questions. As you go through this process, if you want me to look at your sketches early and give you any feedback, just upload them to Google Classroom, submit them, and I'll return them with some notes. Okay. Or you might get lucky and I might go, looks good. You're ready to go. All right. And then the following week, when we get back, when we're at that sort of last back half, when we're in theory/shop, we're going to wrap this up, okay? This is it. This is your last project. This sort of 3-part project is your last piece, okay? So hopefully this video makes sense to you. And I'm trying to kind of touch base with everybody, but some of you I've heard from, some of you I haven't. So that's about it. If you have questions after you watch the video, just email me. If you want to zoom back into the video and see what's on and where you can go from there, do that as well. All right. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll touch base on these and we'll figure out some other dates for another meeting or two. And believe it or not, we're wrapping the year up, which is really kind of crazy, even though it feels like it's been over partially and longer than not. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. All right.